The Watauga County Spotlight on Education show is brought to you by the orthodontal and pediatric offices of Drs. Mayhew, Scheffler, Kahn, and Hardaway.
Hi, this is Marshall Ashcraft. I'm with the Watauga County Schools as Public Information Director. Here with me is Tamara Stamey, our Director of Elementary Education. We're going to be talking with her a little bit about some of the things going on in our younger grades, which she is responsible for helping us guide those teachers and students and helping them succeed. I want to start by backing up a little bit from your role exclusively and ask you to tell us a little bit about the curriculum and instruction part of the team and the different roles that you and David and Meredith have in that regard.
Sure. I am fortunate enough to work with a great team out of our district office. Dr. David Fonseca is our assistant superintendent, and he is a sort of over curriculum for us and serves as our liaison with the superintendent and monitors and supports the work that I do with my partner, Meredith Jones, who is the Director of Education for grades 4 through 8, and Dr. Fonseca takes on the high school component of that. So we have 3 folks that make up the curriculum team here for Watauga County Schools. We have lots of other folks that we work with and are supported by, but we would be the 3 folks that sort of lead that charge here in Watauga. It's an exciting team to be a part of. There's a lot of work to be done, but it means that we get to spend a lot of quality time with our teachers, with our principals, and most importantly our students. So that's what we try to do, is make sure that the work that we do keeps us focused on our learners. So that is a great part of my job.
Okay. Well, we'll sort of start here at the lowest level in terms of grade levels, and I know one of the things we have going on this spring, which is a time when we have a lot going on to try to get ready for next fall, is pre-kindergarten. That's the area where we're seeing some changes in how that program operates. And can you tell us first a little bit about what the pre-grade program consists of in Watauga County Schools, and then some of the changes that are taking place in that program for this coming year?
Sure. It's been a little bit dynamic over the last 2 years. We in North Carolina have a program called NC Pre-K, and basically that's a funding source for us, but we are required with that funding to serve our most at-risk students. I think it's clear for everyone that the earlier we can serve a student and get them into an educational program, the better off they're going to be, and all of that requires a lot of funding. So we do have funding from NC Pre-K. Up until last year, the school system served as what is referred to as the contract administrator for that program. We handled the funds. But through our NC Pre-K Council, we were able to shift that responsibility to the Children's Council, Watauga County Children's Council. That's more in line with what happens across the state. That's usually the partner that is the contract administrator. So that was new for our parents because they're very used to accessing Watauga County Public Schools for all of their information about pre-K. And we can still provide a lot of information, but in terms of the application process and the determination of eligibility, that's all being handled by the Children's Council now. So if there are any folks listening, you've got children that age or neighbors, grandchildren, we encourage you to make contact with the Children's Council and fill out those applications. It is a need-based, risk-based application in terms of eligibility, but some parents may be surprised that they do in fact qualify, and we'd really love for people to come out and fill an application out. Something that's the same is we're going to be able to offer 4 classrooms, 4 NC Pre-K classrooms in Watauga County Schools for this coming year, just like we did this past year. Those locations are at Cove Creek School, Valley Cruces School, Green Valley School, and Hardin Park School. We also have a really unique opportunity that we just started last year, and we'll be doing it again this year. We have a collaborative with ASU. They're a great partner for us, and the Lucy Brock class and program at ASU has a collaborative at Parkway. This is a really different endeavor for us in that we're providing the space for them to operate a classroom, but they, in their partnership with us, are taking on the cost associated with that. So the teacher salary, the TA salary, snacks, equipment, all of those things that are recurring costs for us in the school system, they're covering those costs in order to use our space. And their goal in doing that with us is that's another group of children that we can reach. So they are also serving at-risk students. So together, that vision of serving our most at-risk students, we're just adding to. And as much as we would love to be able to offer a classroom at every school, 2 classrooms at every school, we know those students are out there, we don't have the funding for that. So we're looking for creative ways to get that done for our families. And that's a really interesting and productive and beneficial relationship we have with ASU right now.
And although the site of the program is just based at those 4 schools plus Parkway,
Yes, sir.
it's also the case, though, that students from all over the county can apply to go, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Although we have programs at particular schools, we accept applications from families all across the district. If we can't place you in the school in the district in which you live, we will offer you a placement at another school. And very often our families are able to work with family members and work out pickup times and that kind of thing. So we've had great luck with, say for example, our Valley Crucis community. We have over half the students in that classroom. Those families don't actually live in the Valley Crucis community. Same thing for Cove Creek. Our population is a little bit more dense on the eastern end of the county, so Hardin Park and Green Valley tend to have a larger percentage of their students who live in those 2 districts, but we really do serve a large percentage of families outside of those districts as well.
And I'll just throw in a little bit of a plug for the pre-K program, too, because it's always been one that I think is very special in our school system and one we'd love to see expanded. There's a lot of research showing that some of the best investments you can make in education are at the pre-K level. And in addition to that research, I've heard people in our schools say they can see the difference between children who have been in the pre-K setting and those who have not. It's a hugely important thing, and it's one of the things that I would most love to see expanded in our school system and statewide.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I will tell you that our principals say to us every chance they get, those that are in a school that don't have a current pre-K program, that they know the difference, that they can tell. They know what a difference it would make to have it on site at their school. And I think also the best review we could get is our repeat customers, parents who had children who went through pre-K, who call me and say, please tell me my youngest child is going to have that opportunity. So I think when parents have gone through a program and they see the value of it and want to advocate for those kind of programs, I think that's the best advertising we can do. And much like the long list of things that we hope and wish we could do in Watauga County Schools because it's in the best interest of our students, we just have to look at sustainability and consistency in our program development. So we're always looking for ways to do that, but we want to open those new sites when we know we can maintain them, because we think the worst thing we could do is start one and have to pull it back. So I know that that can be so frustrating for parents of young children who know the quality of the experience that they can get in pre-K. And we also want to be very cognizant of our community partners who provide pre-K services for their students, or for younger students, whether that's in a home daycare or in a business daycare. We know they're doing good things for students too, and we want to do what's right for all of those stakeholders. So it's a complicated question, but one that we want to give a lot of energy to.
Right. Well, moving up just one notch from pre-K to kindergarten, tell us a little bit about what we're doing in terms of orientation for next year and how things are shaping up. Are there any big changes planned in that area of operations?
Well, absolutely. Well, springtime is kindergarten orientation time, so that is what I've been doing for a number of days. I've had the opportunity to visit in 5 of our 8 schools. We still have kindergarten orientation coming for Blowing Rock School at the end of this week, Hardin Park School and Parkway next week. Our other 5 schools have finished that process, but obviously if somehow you missed that or you've just moved into our district, please touch base with your schools and start that enrollment process. But it's our first chance to get to know families and kids, and we are so fortunate that we're able to do that and reach out to those parents and talk to them about the unique circumstance at the school that their child will be attending. We are very fortunate in Watauga County Schools that no matter where you go to school, you're going to get an excellent education, but each community school has something very special to offer to their community, and this is our opportunity during these orientation days to share that and to give parents a little picture of what kindergarten will be like, because as I've said in all of our kindergarten orientations, it's a little different than when I went to kindergarten or parents went to kindergarten. The curriculum has changed, and there is a little bit more expectation in both reading and math than they may have remembered. But what I like to share with parents that I think is more important is even the change in the curriculum has not replaced the most important thing about curriculum, or about kindergarten, is that when parents bring their children to us, what they really want to know more than anything else is that they will be cared for and they will be respected and treated as individuals, and that's going to happen no matter what the curriculum is. So our teachers are very capable at taking those high expectations for curriculum. Yes, they will be dealing with numbers to 100, they will be reading nonfiction, all those things are going to happen, but they're going to introduce them in a very developmentally appropriate way. And just like anything else, it's a journey. We're not going to get all that done in the first 2 weeks of school. It takes a full year. And so that is an opportunity for us to bring children along. And I think one of the most important changes in general to our curriculum, but it shows up in kindergarten, is we've moved beyond the idea of what we call rote skills or memorization to really laying a foundation for understanding later on. So that's why some of the math looks and feels and sounds a little different. But the idea is to make a student that much more proficient in their understanding of what's happening. So again, our quality teachers make that very doable in our system.
You said one thing there which I want to highlight too, and that is that I think there's one of the things that I really appreciate in our teachers and a lot of our staff in school is there is a whole child emphasis in Watauga County Schools. We don't see a child as just a number and a little object to be injected with knowledge and regurgitated at the appropriate time. I think people really appreciate the fact there's a social emotional component. There are all these other elements. And in fact, in those early years, it's those social emotional skills that are really the foundation for academic success in the later years.
That is so true. You know, we joke in my age range that children do not come to us automatically knowing what it means to be in a line or to do fill in the blank with anything. That's the job of the kindergarten teacher, is not only to teach their curriculum, but to also introduce the idea of school, of a structured setting. And we spend a lot of time doing that. We were fortunate, though, just last week to have had shooting stars happen here in our county. And I think that's a testament to the fact that our teachers do not give up the things they know are important for the development of a child. There still needs to be time with blocks. There still needs to be time in dramatic play. There needs to be time on the playground. All of those things need to happen, and what's amazing is our teachers know how to use all of those opportunities for students to make that both a particularly enjoyable experience for a student, but also an educational one. But we do not give up those things that are so crucial to the development of the whole child: the arts, physical education, a relationship with an adult, and feeling valued in our schools. That's still very important and is still front and center in our kindergarten classrooms, and I credit our teachers with being able to meet the expectations given to them with the curriculum without giving any of that up.
With a little bit larger perspective, looking back on the whole K-3 range, you've made some reference to this in the pre-K and K classes in terms of things going on there, but what are some of the larger trends we see at work in terms of how instruction is changing in those grades and how we try to bring those children along and prepare them for the next level?
I think one thing that is true in K-3, just as it's true in K-12, is grappling with the idea of technology and what's appropriate. We have been very fortunate in our schools to be able to introduce iPads in the use of our K-2 classrooms. But I think it's important for us to say again, and you just alluded to it, that although we want those devices available for when it's appropriate in a classroom, it is not the expectation nor the desire of our teachers or our district for us to have students solely engaged in screen time activities. That's inappropriate. But we do want those devices there for teachers to be able to present opportunities to students we might not otherwise be able to present. And there are students for which some of those opportunities allow them to express what they know in a way they might not otherwise be able to express. So I think just moving across that spectrum of instructional technology integration has been something that we've been grappling with. We've made a significant shift in K-3 in our use of nonfiction material. I would say that if you had looked at the information and the material being used in a kindergarten classroom, say 10 or 15 years ago, it would have been very fiction heavy, very fiction heavy. And now we recognize that the kind of reading that students need to do, the kind of reading that we do as adults, requires a skill set associated with technical reading, nonfiction reading. And so you'll see a switch. You'll see a little bit more of that in kindergarten even, and certainly more in 1st through 3rd grade. And then those associated skills, we don't read that material the same way. And certainly written response to what we learn is something that's an emphasis for us, as that's part of our assessments, and we understand that that's the highest level really. Once you understand something, is being able to share it with someone else in a written form. That's the highest level of understanding for us. So we're really spending a great deal of time on that with our students to make their communication skills as strong as possible. That's one of the 21st century skills I think you can really see an emphasis in K-3 that's a little different.
As we look at those grades, we know that one of the things that we typically don't do, because it's not considered developmentally appropriate, to use that term again, is the kind of standardized testing we use in higher grades to assess how the students are doing. But certainly it's still important for us to know whether they are making progress and whether they're preparing to succeed at the next level. So what are some of the ways that our teachers try to assess that progress and use that information to help keep students on track?
You know, it's amazing. I like to use the analogy, I think that no one would go to baseball practice and say, I think the coach is testing my child too much. But they recognize that the coach is constantly assessing their child's skill level and then making decisions on how to help them improve. And I think if we think about assessment differently than standardized testing, I think that makes the picture in K-3 a little clearer. And actually, I think that's true in K-12. But I think our teachers spend a lot of time assessing and observing our students and then using that information to frame their next steps in instruction. And because we're able to do that, it doesn't require as much standardized testing in K2. But we do give some standardized assessments, and we do that so that over time we can see trends in how our teachers are dealing with the curriculum, how our students are performing, and if we need to make changes in order to support those students, that's what we would get out of that standardized testing. It's never intended nor meant to be used in isolation from anything else. But examples of that would be that in kindergarten we have a Watauga County Schools portfolio process, and so we assess students ongoing throughout the year on all of the different standards and skills that they are learning across the year, and then that information is shared with parents during parent conference time, but it also supports the information that's shared on the report card, and we want a lot of alignment between those assessments, between instruction, and then what we report to parents about the progress of their children. In first and second grade, we have a local assessment that our teachers create. They have a voice in how they are pacing out the curriculum, the instructional materials they're using, and so they've come up with their own summative assessment in math for the end of the year for us to just track to make sure that by the time we send students to third grade, that we're sending them there with a really strong foundation of mathematical knowledge. And we're able to do that by assessing ourselves, basically, by allowing students to do performance-based tasks. These would be things they'd be doing in the classroom anyway. So if it's a task with blocks, it would be the blocks they're normally using. It would be the geometric shapes they're normally using. And they'll complete a task with a teacher who then can turn that into some assessment information. I know lots of people in our community and across the state are familiar with our standardized reading assessment, Reading 3D. And you know, for everything that an assessment brings, we have to keep it in perspective, that any assessment can provide us with information that's useful. What we need to make sure is that the teachers, the parents, and most importantly the students keep that assessment in perspective. Although that's an important assessment and it is a state mandated assessment, we try to keep it in perspective, meaning that is one opportunity for that student to read and write on one day. So that has to be balanced with the information that that teacher sees from that child every other day of the week. And so we want to value and respect that assessment, and we want to use it along with classroom information to make wise decisions for instruction. And that's really the purpose of those assessments.
I think it's really important to make that point that you just made. I think it also reflects, again, the emphasis on a whole child perspective. No one is under the illusion in this school system that a number defines a child's success or that it should determine their fate forever. It's information to be used. And we'd also like to remind parents and other stakeholders that those tests aren't always primarily directed at trying to measure how the child is doing. A lot of times it's about trying to measure how we are doing. We as educators are the teachers delivering instruction, and it's always, in that context too, a component, never the component, of how we're trying to measure success. And so we try to use that information going forward to improve what we're doing, not to put a stamp on somebody about how well or how poorly they're doing at their job or as a student.
That's true, and I have to commend our leadership at the district office. They're very careful to keep our vision about assessment appropriate, meaning that we take all of that information together, and that for a child or a teacher, that there's so much more than one particular piece of information can tell you. But if we can over time see a trend or a commonality across our district that might speak to some training we need to provide, or professional development or conference opportunities, or teachers working with teachers, that's the most exciting thing, is when we can pair teachers up to learn from one another and improve what is already great practice to be that much better. That's what those assessments let us do. And when we are falling short of the mark, we need to know that so that we're delivering the very best instruction we can to our families. I think they should expect that of us, and we try to deliver on that.
I think that shows a commendable commitment to continuous improvement.
I think so, and I think that's what our families expect in Watauga County.
Okay, well, as we look forward to the next year and finishing up this one of the things that those of you, especially who are parents of younger children, might appreciate are some tips on the things they can do to best support their children in school and help them succeed in that setting. So can you give us some advice on that topic?
I can, and the good news is it's a rather short list. There is not a magic bullet of a thing or a program or an app that you can have at your home that will guarantee that your child will be far and above everyone else when they come into school. And actually, for parents who have children coming to kindergarten, we really do not want you to spend too much time worrying that you haven't checked off every box for your child before they come to school. We really are looking forward to meeting them where they are and taking them as far as they can go in a year. But as much as people have already heard this, I take every opportunity I can to say it again. Reading with your child is one of the most important, if not the most important thing that you can do. And the reason for that is if it's time spent with an adult that child values and that activity is happening, then they learn to value that activity. And then when they come to school and their child is reading with a teacher, they take that really good feeling they had about reading with their parent and they project that onto their teacher. And what that leads to is the thing we need more than anything else is just a love of learning, that school is a great place to be and that we want you there. Good things will be happening for you in that place. And if every child can come to school with that true foundation, we can do whatever we need to do with and for them when they get there. I do joke that if you can let them work a little with scissors and glue, that helps us as well, and to be okay if they cut their siblings' hair, that will grow back. So I share that with parents. But truly, reading with your child and giving them, not giving, I think children already have it, but encouraging that very natural curiosity that they have, that desire to know, to explore. If that can be fed by important people in your child's life, that's really what we need from you. And then when it gets a little closer to kindergarten time, about 2 weeks out, you do want to start building a little bit of a routine, and that takes a while. So a good strong bedtime, a regular getting up time, a routine for how we get ready for school, but that doesn't need to start now. It's going to be summertime and they're going to want to stay up late and sleep in the morning. But about 2 weeks out from school, if we can start to work on a little bit of a routine, that just helps everybody with that transition. And then I want to say to parents, there will be tears, but your child won't hold it against you that you cried. So that's okay. It's a big day. We celebrate when they come in. We celebrate when they cross the stage 13 some odd years later. And in between, it's a celebration of everything that they're learning. So we just want to work with parents about that.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Tamara Stamey, thank you so much for being with us today. Those of you in the audience, thank you so much for listening. We hope you'll enjoy this information that we've been able to share with you. We hope you'll visit our website on the Watauga County Schools, www.watauga.k12.nc.us, or just Google it and it'll come up right away. Thank you for listening. Until next time, goodbye.
The Watauga County Spotlight on Education show is brought to you by the orthodontal and pediatric offices of Drs. Mayhew, Scheffler, Kahn, and Hardaway.